The sun was high in the sky, spreading its golden light over the quiet neighborhood. The streets looked calm, the air was still, and everything appeared peaceful on the surface. But peace is fragile, and sometimes it hides the darkest of wars. Sarah, a 45-year-old woman dressed in her pink suit, walked down the steps of her apartment. In one hand, she held a thick rope tied to her loyal dog. The animal barked eagerly, pulling forward, sensing something unusual in the air. Sarah had worked all her life to build a stable home, to own something she could be proud of. Her car, a shining, expensive vehicle, was not just transportation. It was her achievement, her independence, her pride. But as she turned the corner and stepped onto the street, her heart stopped. Her car, the very thing she had struggled years to buy, was engulfed in flames. Orange fire roared across the body of the vehicle. Black smoke billowed up into the bright sky, twisting and spreading like a flag of destruction. The popping of burning tires echoed down the street, sharp and violent. For a moment, Sarah's breath caught in her throat. The world spun around her. The dog barked wildly, straining against the rope, as if it too could feel her devastation. And then she saw him. The villain, the head of the HOA. He stood tall and proud only a few steps from the fire, his arms folded across his chest. His smirk was cruel, his eyes cold. He wasn't hiding. He wasn't ashamed. In fact, he seemed proud of what he had done. Beside him were two police officers. But instead of helping, instead of stopping the crime, they leaned casually against their patrol car. Their arms rested lazily at their sides, their mouths twisted in laughter. They weren't there to serve justice. They were there to humiliate her. The villain's voice cut through the roar of the fire. Loud, arrogant, dripping with mockery. Nice car, wasn't it, Sarah? All those years working, saving, dreaming, and look at it now. Ashes in the daylight. This is what happens when you think you can fight me. When you think you're bigger than the rules. The police joined in with laughter. One officer cupped his hands around his mouth and shouted, "Guess you'll be walking from now on, lady." Another added cruelly, "Hope you learned your lesson. Don't mess with the boss." The laughter stabbed into Sarah's chest sharper than knives. She clenched her fists. Her eyes stung, not from the smoke but from the humiliation. Years of hard work gone in minutes. Her pride reduced to flames. Her enemies laughing openly, backed by the law itself. But Sarah did not crumble. She took a step forward, her voice shaking at first but then rising strong. "You think this breaks me? You think destroying what I own can destroy who I am? You're wrong. All you've done is prove what you are, cowards. Criminals who hide behind uniforms and titles. You can burn my car, but you cannot burn my spirit." Her dog barked furiously, pulling against the rope, adding weight to her words. The villain's smile faltered. Just for a second, his eyes twitched. Above, neighbors had begun to notice. Curtains parted. Windows opened. Faces appeared, men, women, children peeking out to see the commotion. Their eyes widened when they saw the scene. A woman's car burning in broad daylight, the HOA leader standing smugly beside it, and the police laughing rather than stopping it. Sarah raised her hand toward the apartments, her voice echoing. "Look at this. Look at what they've done. They destroy what they want when they want because they think no one will stop them. Today it is my car. Tomorrow it could be your home. If we stay silent, we all lose. If we hide, they take everything from us. Piece by piece, fire by fire." Her words rippled through the street like thunder. The neighbors whispered. Some gasped. Children pointed toward the fire, their eyes wide with fear and disbelief. The villain snarled, stepping forward. "Don't listen to her. She's nothing but a loudmouth, a troublemaker. She's one woman, one against many. She can't stand against us." The police smirked, nodding in agreement, but their laughter was weaker now. They exchanged nervous glances, sensing the shift in the air. The people were watching. The silence of the community was breaking. Sarah's dog growled deeply. The rope stretched tight in her hand as she stepped closer to the villain, her eyes blazing. The sunlight reflected against her pink suit, making her stand out like a banner of defiance against the smoke and flames. Her voice dropped low, controlled, heavy with fire. "You may control the police. You may control the HOA, but you will never control me. I will not kneel. I will not break. Do you hear me? I will fight you with every breath I have left." The villain's expression cracked. His arrogance faltered, his jaw clenched, his smirk gone. The flames roared higher behind Sarah, filling the street with heat and smoke. The crowd of neighbors grew thicker. Some stepped outside their doors. Others leaned out further, watching carefully. The air was heavy with tension. With the birth of something dangerous, resistance, one voice from above called out softly, "She's right." Another followed louder, "We've all seen it. We know what you do." The villain whipped his head around, glaring at the apartments. But the whispers had begun, spreading like fire through dry grass. Sarah took another step, her dog at her side like a soldier. She raised her chin high, her voice clear and unshakable. "You burned my car. You mocked my pain. But you cannot burn the truth. You cannot laugh away justice. And you will never, ever destroy me." The crowd held its breath. The police stood frozen, their smiles gone. The villain's face twisted with rage, but he couldn't find words to answer her. The fire crackled behind them, black smoke curling higher and higher into the perfect blue sky. Neighbors watched, silent but awake now, their eyes no longer downcast, no longer afraid. Sarah stood tall, her pink suit glowing in the daylight, her dog barking like a drum of war. She was not broken. She was not silenced. She was stronger than ever. Her voice carried through the silence, steady and fierce. "This is not the end. This is the beginning. You think you've won, but today, you've made your greatest mistake. You've shown everyone who you truly are, and now the fight begins." The villain shifted uneasily, sweat forming at his temple despite the confidence he always carried. The police no longer laughed. They stood still, caught between their loyalty to corruption and the growing power of truth rising from the crowd. The neighbors leaned closer, whispering her name. Sarah. Yes, her car was gone, but her spirit was untouchable. And in the clear daylight, with the flames behind her and the people before her, Sarah became something more than just a woman who had been wronged. She became a symbol, a spark of defiance, the fire that could not be put out. This was only part one of her battle. But already the daylight carried a promise. The HOA had started a war they could not win. The fire had burned down to smoldering ash, but the smoke still stained the bright daylight sky. Sarah stood firm, her pink suit dusted with soot, her dog at her side, the rope tight in her hand. The flames had taken her car, but they had not taken her courage. Neighbors leaned from their windows, whispering her name. The villain, head of the HOA, shifted uneasily. His arrogance had cracked. But villains are not so easily defeated. The man's face twisted with rage, his voice booming like thunder. "Enough of this show. Enough of her lies." He turned sharply to the two police officers, pointing at Sarah with a trembling hand. "Arrest her, right here, right now, for disturbing the peace, for resisting authority, for defaming the HOA. Drag her away." The officers looked at each other. Their earlier laughter had faded, but they still moved forward, obeying the command. One officer sneered as he approached. "Guess it's time you learned who really has the power." The other added, "Your spirit won't mean much behind bars, lady." Sarah's dog growled, teeth bared, the rope straining in her grip. She pulled it tight, her jaw clenched, her eyes blazing with defiance. "You dare?" she shouted, her voice echoing across the street. "You dare arrest me while the real criminal stands beside you smiling? You are not police. You are his puppets. Nothing more." Her words struck like a hammer. From the windows, murmurs rose. A man whispered, "She's right." A woman added, "We all saw it. He burned her car." And they laughed. The officers hesitated, their steps slowing. But the villain barked louder. "Do your job. She is dangerous. She is corrupting this neighborhood with her lies." And so, with hesitation but obedience, the police grabbed Sarah by the arms. Her dog barked furiously, lunging, snapping at their boots. Sarah resisted, pulling against their grip. Her voice carried over the daylight air, sharp and unshakable. "Look at this. Look at what they do in the open sun. They destroy, they humiliate, and when we rise, they silence us with chains. If they can do this to me, they can do this to any of you." The crowd gasped. Windows slammed open wider. A child shouted, "Leave her alone." The villain sneered up at the apartments. "Quiet, all of you! This woman is nothing. She is trouble, and trouble is punished." Sarah's body tensed as the officers forced her toward the squad car. Her dog clawed against the ground, barking violently, refusing to let her go. And then, it happened. From one of the windows, a man threw down a bucket of water, splashing the ground in front of the police. It wasn't much, but it was an act of rebellion. Another neighbor banged a pan loudly, the sound echoing like a war drum. Others began to shout, "She's right! We saw everything! Stop protecting him!" The villain's face drained of color. For years, silence had been his greatest weapon. But silence was breaking. Sarah, her arms still in the grip of the officers, lifted her chin high. The sunlight caught her face, her pink suit glowing bright, her voice carrying like a banner of defiance. You can drag me through the streets. You can put me behind bars, but you cannot hide the truth anymore. Everyone has seen. Everyone knows? And the truth will not burn. The officers froze. Their grip weakened. They could feel the crowd's eyes, dozens of them, staring down from the buildings, burning judgment into their backs. The villain shouted louder, desperate now. Take her away. I command you! But even commands can lose their power. One officer muttered under his breath, this is wrong. The other tightened his jaw but did not move. Sarah pulled free from their loosened grasp. Her dog leapt in front of her, guarding her fiercely, barking like thunder rolling across the street. The villain stepped back in shock. For the first time, fear flashed in his eyes. Sarah pointed directly at him, her voice sharp as steel. You can burn my car. You can twist the law. But you cannot break me, and soon you will not be able to break anyone else. The neighbors erupted into murmurs. Some clapped. Some shouted. The villain shouted back, trying to drown them out. But the sound of defiance was louder. In the broad daylight in front of the world, Sarah had turned her humiliation into strength. She had turned silence into noise. She had turned fear into courage. And as the sun burned bright overhead, the people realized something dangerous. Maybe they didn't have to fear the HOA anymore. Maybe they could fight. The villain, red with rage, hissed through clenched teeth. This is not over, Sarah. You think you've won something today? No. You've only signed your doom. I will crush you, and anyone who stands with you. Sarah stepped forward, her dog by her side, her eyes unflinching. No, you've already lost. You just don't know it yet. The street fell into silence once more, but it was not the silence of fear. It was the silence of awakening. A war had begun, and this time Sarah wasn't alone. The next day the sun rose high over the apartments, painting everything in harsh daylight. But the light revealed more than walls and streets. It revealed tension, a community divided between fear and courage, silence and rebellion. Sarah walked through the courtyard, her pink suit still marked by soot from the burned car, her dog at her side. Every step she took was heavy with memory, but also with strength. The whispers followed her, neighbors nodding, children pointing, people murmuring her name. She was no longer just the woman who lost her car. She was something more, a spark. But sparks attract enemies. The HOA head had not forgotten his humiliation. That morning, posters were plastered on the walls. Sarah, troublemaker. Disturbing the peace, dangerous to the community. Lies printed in bold letters. Paid for by the HOA, spread with the help of the police. Sarah tore one down, her hand trembling with rage. They want to make me the criminal, she said softly to her dog. They want to turn truth into lies. The villain appeared at the edge of the street, flanked by officers. His voice carried sharp in the open air. People of this neighborhood, do not be deceived. This woman pretends to be a hero, but she is nothing more than a threat. She brings chaos. She defies order, and now she must face the consequences. Sarah stepped forward, raising her voice so all could hear. No, I'm not the threat. He is. The one who burns, who silences, who controls with fear. Look around you. Who really disturbs the peace? Is it me or is it the fire he lit? The neighbors stirred. Murmurs grew louder. Some tore down the posters, crumpling them in anger. The villain's face tightened. His command cracked like a whip. Arrest her again! Do not hesitate this time. The officers advanced. Sarah's dog growled, pulling forward, teeth bared. Sarah stood tall, her voice like steel. You can put chains on my hands, but you cannot chain the truth. Everyone has seen. Everyone knows? And you will not bury me in silence. The officers grabbed her arms roughly. The crowd gasped. Some shouted, stop. Others clapped in support. The tension boiled over. And then, a woman from the crowd stepped forward. An elderly neighbor, her voice trembling but clear. You will not take her. Not today. The officers hesitated. The villain shouted in fury. Move aside, or face the law yourselves. But more neighbors stepped out, men, women, even teenagers. They formed a line in the daylight, standing between Sarah and the squad car. Sarah's heart pounded. She looked at them, her eyes shining. This is what they fear, she whispered. Not me alone. Us together. The villain roared, desperate now. You think this changes anything? You think standing in the sun makes you strong? I own this place. I control everything. Sarah pulled free from the officer's grip, stepping closer to him. Her dog barked so fiercely it echoed off the apartment walls. Her voice rose, cutting sharp through the air. No, you control nothing. Not anymore. You burned my car, but you couldn't break me. You tried to silence me, but you only gave me a louder voice. And now look around you, you don't control them either. The crowd erupted, voices rising, hands clapping, shouts filling the street. The villain's face turned red with fury. He raised his hand as if to order the police again. But the officers froze. Their courage was gone. For the first time, the villain looked small, powerless. Sarah lifted her chin high, her dog standing at her side like a soldier. The sunlight bathed her in brilliance. She was no longer a victim, no longer just a fighter. She was a leader. Her voice carried, steady and unshakable. This is not just about me. This is about all of us. They thought they could control us forever, but they were wrong. This is where it ends. This is where we rise. The villain stumbled back, sweat glistening on his forehead. The police lowered their eyes, and the neighbors, once silent, once afraid, but he now stood shoulder to shoulder, unbreakable. The war was no longer one woman's fight. It was everyone's. And in the bright daylight, in the heart of the neighborhood, the first true battle for freedom had begun.